Hey guys, it's me. Sorry, there's going to be background noise and stuff today. We are in the car traveling, so you are going to get the online in the car traveling version of Miss Neal. It's life. So yesterday we stopped talking about single cell paramecium and animals that were protists, that were single celled and were animal-like. So today we're going to pick up with more protists. But all the protists we talk about today are going to be protists that are considered plant-like. So the first one we're going to talk plant-like or algae-like, sorry. So domain Eukarya, so we're still in that domain Eukarya. We're in kingdom Protista. So there's a reason these guys are protists. They're either one cell big, so they can't be considered an animal, or they don't have a cell wall, so they can't be considered a plant, or they don't have a cell wall made of chitin, so they're not a fungi. So they're just kind of in this catch-all in-between area where they're not really anything. And so we call them protists. So you had your animal-like protists, which yesterday you learned about the amoeba and the paramecium. They're both one-cell big animals. Well, animal-like creatures. Today we're going to learn about algae-like. So most of them are aquatic. They lack any specialized tissues. However, the one difference between these guys is they can be multicellular. So everything we talked about yesterday was unicellular. These guys we're going to talk about today can be multicellular. So they can grow to be big macroscopic organisms. The first one we're going to talk about is phylum Bacillariophyta. So these guys are more commonly called diatoms, and they either make long chains or they make star-like groups. And they've got cell walls made of silica. So remember from yesterday, silica is glass. So these guys have cell walls made of glass. They live out in the open water or the open ocean. So these guys are a type of plankton. You've probably heard of all of these protists your whole life referred to just as general plankton. So these are a type of plankton. They're producers, so they're phytoplankton. They are going to use the sun's energy. They're photosynthetic. They're going to use the sun's energy in order to create food. Half of them are marine, so about one half live in the marine environment. The other half live in fresh water. They go through asexual reproduction, and they go through asexual reproduction. The ones you've most commonly heard of probably are brown scum, so like brown scum on the side of an aquarium, or diatomaceous earth. So this is diatomaceous earth down here in this pile. If you have grandparents that like to garden or your parents like to garden, diatomaceous earth is used all the time in gardening. So what they do is they take these diatoms, remember they're made of silica, so they take these diatoms and they crush them up, and it makes this diatomaceous earth. So a lot of them use it for pest control, because when you put it on your plants, whenever a pest or an insect climbs on top of it, it cuts that insect or that pest open, and they can no longer continue climbing on the plant. You can see right here the chain groups, and then you've got your star groups that are triangles. What's really neat about these guys is when they reproduce, they go through asexual reproduction. So they split in half, they pinch in the middle, and they split in half. So each half regenerates, the shell separates, each half regenerates another matching half of the shell. So every time they reproduce, they get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So eventually the individual gets too small, and he slips out of his shell, and he forms a brand new shell from the start. And then these shells fall to the bottom of the ocean, where they build up. So the dead diatoms are what we're collecting at the bottom of the ocean. Diatomaceous earth is also used for paint on the road. Any of the road paint that is reflective or sparkly or shiny has crushed diatoms in it, or diatomaceous earth. It's also used in an abrasive. So in a lot of your cleaners and scrubs and different things like that, it's going to have diatomaceous earth in it, or it might even just say that it has silica in it. Where they get that silica from is from diatoms. The next phylum we're going to talk about are Dinoflagellata. These guys are called dinoflagellates. These are one of my favorite protists. They're unicellular. That means they're only one cell big. What makes them unique is they have two unequal flagella. They have one that goes around this ridge on the center. They have one that trails free. So in this picture down here, you can see where the one is on the center. And they've got this flagella trailing free to help aid with movement. They have a cell wall made of cellulose, which is the same thing you would find in a plant. They're all marine and they live in warm waters and they go through asexual reproduction. What makes these guys so cool is there's a few different species. One of them, or almost all of them though, bioluminesce or grow. If you get on the internet and you look up dinoflagellates, you can actually buy a little dinosaur. He looks like this. And you put the dinoflagellates or the protists into that little guy. You feed him about once a week, and every time you shake him at night, all of the dinoflagellates glow. You can also find them on a lot of beaches up in the northern hemisphere, and when you walk on the beaches at night, they hold beach lights up from all the dinoflagellates inside the sand. Another type of dinoflagellate is the zoanthally. I know I'm saying that wrong. I always mispronounce it. Those are the ones that live on the corals. So they are what give corals the ability to live. So these zooxanthellae are what trap the sun's energy. They're photosynthetic organisms. And then the coral uses that energy that the zooxanthellae make. Dinoflagellates are also responsible for red tides, which kill millions of animals each year. So now we're going to talk about the plants that are, or the multicellular protists that are plant-like and that are large. You can see these with your naked eye. They're macroscopic. So all of these guys are going to be eukaryotic, and there's a disagreement. A lot of people think they should be classified as plants, but these algae don't have a cell wall. So therefore, because they don't have a cell wall, they are not considered a plant. There is a picture on Schoology today that you're going to have to label. This is a seaweed. This is a form of kelp. So when we're talking about seaweeds or these multicellular protists that are plant-like, the thallus refers to the entire body. The blade refers to one leaf-like portion. This is the part that's photosynthetic. The pneumaticist is a gas-filled bladder. So this pneumaticist is what floats. So they don't have a cell wall to hold them upright. This pneumaticist floats, and that's what holds these multicellular structures upright. Some of these giant kelps can get 3 and 4 stories tall. So a plant on land or a tree has cell walls holding it up and making it stand up, whereas these guys have the pneumaticysts underwater that hold them upright in that water column. It also gives them the flexibility to move in the currents and to not snap in half. You've got stipes. Stipes is a fancy word to say stem. But remember, these aren't plants, so we can't call it a stem. We call it a stipe. And again, they're not plants. We can't call them roots. We call them holdfasts, and that's what hold these things to the seafloor. The first one we're going to talk about are the chlorophytas. The chlorophytas have bright green chlorophyll in them. That is why they're bright green. These are all green algae and green seaweeds. There's a lot of organisms. Some of them are unicellular, some of them are multicellular, some of them are microscopic, which means we can't see them. Some of them are macroscopic. They're freshwater and they're terrestrial. Over here we have ulva, which is a fancy word for sea lettuce. At the bottom, we have a green algae called dead man's fingers because it literally looks like a dead person's fingers are growing up out of the ground. But it's not a dead person's fingers, nor is it a plant. It's a protist. So phylum Chlorophyta are made up of chlorophyll. They have chlorophyll that capture the sun's energy. That's where the name Chlorophyta comes from. They're green, like a plant. All right, the next one we're going to talk about are phylum Phaeophyta. These are brown algae. They can be anywhere from dark green to a light brown in color. It is due to the pigment fucoxanthin. These are all marine, and they're the most complex and largest seaweeds that we find in the ocean. They are kelps, rockweeds, sargassoweeds, pedina. So almost all of your seaweeds, or what you think of to be large seaweeds, are going to be brown algae. Last but not least, you have phylum Rhodophyta. These are red algae. Rhodophyta starts with an R, so just red. This one has the most different number of species in it, and they are made up of phycobilins. So those phycobilins are red. They mask the green chlorophyll completely, and that's why they have a red color. Most all of these are marine. You've got your corallina, your gelidium, and your porphyra. Here's a picture over here to the right of what one of these red algae would look like. So multicellular algae can go through asexual and sexual reproduction. If it goes through asexual reproduction, essentially a chunk of it falls off and hits the ground, and it grows a new plant. It can also release spores. These spores have cell walls or flagella. They're released into the water. They travel on the currents. When they land in a new location, that's where they grow. For sexual reproduction, it's really uncommon in unicellulars, but in multicellular marine algae, what they're going to do is they're going to release gametes, so release something that's going to be pollen-like, but remember their pollen cannot travel in the air because we're in the water, so it's going to travel in the currents. When two gametes fuse, it's going to form an egg and a new plant will be born, or a new protist will be born. So in macrocystis or macrocystis, which is giant kelp, we pull something out of it called a phycocolloid, and we use that in our day-to-day life. You probably used it this morning. They pull algin from it, which is a stabilizer and emulsifier. They make dairy products from it. They make frostings from it. Your toothpaste has it in there. We also use agar in the lab. That agar is used to grow bacteria on. It's also that gel-like stuff. If you've ever eaten ham or fish or anything that's canned, or meat that comes in a container, or like a plastic sealed meat thing, that agar is on there to help retain the moisture. That's actually from seaweed. So they actually intentionally grow and harvest the seaweeds. For assignments today, you have to finish the kelp labeling in Schoology. You also need to finish the crossword puzzle and the concept map on Kingdom Protista. If you're having trouble with either of those, I suggest you try the Biology Corner website. She's got a lot of useful helps and hints that can help you finish those two assignments. If you have any questions, make sure to email me, and I look forward to hearing from you soon.